Hello and welcome back to Grim Tales. Before we begin, feel free to leave a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I love reading every single one. If you enjoy dark, twisted, grim tales that send chills down your spine, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Now get comfortable, dim the lights if you dare, relax your mind, let the outside world fade away, and let's begin. Story 1. Min Jae woke up to flashing lights. For a few seconds, he did not understand where he was. Pink and blue LED lights pulsed across the ceiling above him, washing the room in soft colors that made everything look unreal. Loud music blasted from somewhere nearby, the bass so strong that he could feel it vibrating through the metal beneath his body. His head throbbed with pain. His mouth was dry. His thoughts came slowly, one piece at a time, like his mind was trying to climb out of deep water. He blinked several times and stared at the ceiling. This was not his dorm room. It was not the apartment of anyone he knew. It was not anywhere he remembered going. He tried to sit up, but his body felt heavy and slow. His neck ached. His back hurt. His left wrist felt strange, cold, and tight, like something hard was pressing into his skin. He tried to move his arm. Clink, the sound was small, but in that moment, it felt louder than the music. Min Jae looked down. A metal handcuff was locked around his wrist. The short chain connected it to the arm of a chair bolted into the floor. He was not lying in a bed. He was sitting in a chair. A real chair, heavy and fixed in place, like someone had prepared it for exactly this. His heart began to race. What the hell? He whispered. He pulled against the cuff. The metal bit into his wrist. The chair did not move at all. What the fuck? He shouted. The bedroom door flew open. A woman rushed in holding a phone in her hand. She moved fast, like she had been waiting just outside the door for him to wake up. Her phone was already pointed at him, and her eyes were wide with excitement. She looked like she was in her 30s, which somehow made the room around her feel even more disturbing. She wore a pastel pink pleated miniskirt and a cropped white hoodie with the name of a K-pop group printed across the front. A small bow clip held back one side of her hair. Everything about her outfit looked carefully chosen, like she was trying to look younger than she was, or like she had dressed for a fantasy she had built in her head. She was smiling, not nervously, not with guilt. She was smiling like this was the best day of her life. Oh my God, she gasped. You're awake. Min Jae yanked against the handcuff again. Who are you? The woman pressed a hand to her chest, as if the question touched her deeply. I'm Emily. Where am I? My house. Why am I chained to a chair? She paused for a second. Her smile became softer, almost shy, like the answer should have been obvious. Because I don't want you leaving yet, silly. Min Jae stared at her. For a moment, he could not speak. He looked around the room, searching for anything that made sense. The walls were covered from top to bottom in K-pop posters. There were faces everywhere. Smiling idols looked down at him from every wall, frozen in bright, perfect poses. Albums were stacked neatly on shelves, organized by release date. Photocards were arranged in rows with obsessive care, each one placed at the exact same distance from the next. Light sticks sat in a glass case. Plush toys, banners, fan signs, and framed concert tickets filled every empty space. It did not look like a bedroom. It looked like a shrine. Emily noticed him staring and stepped closer, her expression becoming tender. You're the first Korean person I've ever met, she whispered. She said it like it was sacred. Min Jae's stomach dropped. What? I've waited so long for this. He pulled at the cuff again, harder this time. Pain shot through his wrist. Let me go. Emily did not seem to hear that part. She looked around the room proudly, as if she were showing him something beautiful. I started with K-pop when I was 13, she said. Then dramas. Then interviews. Then variety shows. Then I learned Korean, oppa. The way she said the Korean word made him physically cringe. Her pronunciation was painful, stretched, and wrong, like she had learned it only from clips online and had never heard herself say it out loud to a real person. "Don't call me that," Min-jae said. She only smiled wider. "You're so much more elegant than other men." "You don't know anything about Korean men. I know enough." "No, you don't." She gave a soft laugh, almost like he had made a cute joke. Then her face lit up suddenly, as if she remembered something important. "Oh. Wait." She rushed to the corner of the room and pressed the button. A ring light turned on. White light flooded the space, erasing the pink and blue glow for a moment and replacing it with something harsh and clean. The room suddenly felt like a studio, but also like an interrogation cell. Min-jae blinked against the brightness. His head hurt even more. Emily mounted her phone on a tripod in front of him. She adjusted the angle, tilted the camera, checked herself in the screen, and smiled. "I'm going live," she said brightly. Min-jae went cold. "You're what?" "My followers are going to lose their minds. Don't do that," she ignored him. Her thumb moved over the screen. "Emily," he said, forcing himself to stay calm, "listen to me. You need to stop. You need to unlock this handcuff and let me go. I don't know what you think this is, but this is kidnapping." She smiled at the phone. A title appeared on the live stream. First time meeting a real Korean boy. Then she hit go. The stream began. The comments started coming in almost instantly. "He's real? Oh my God, Emily finally did it. This is crazy. Kidnapped Ark? Is this a role play? She hired an actor?" Emily beamed at the camera. She bounced slightly on her toes, barely able to contain her excitement. "Guys," she said, "he's shy right now, but he's Korean. He's an actual exchange student. He just got here." Min-jae leaned forward as much as the cuff allowed and looked directly at the phone. "I'm being kidnapped," he said. The comments exploded faster. "He's staying in character. Best role-play stream ever. He looks so scared. I love it. Bro is committed. Is this scripted?" Emily nodded proudly. "See? He's improvising. I'm not improvising," Min-jae snapped. "This is real. Somebody call the police. I don't know this woman. She drugged me or knocked me out or something. I woke up chained to a chair." For 1 second, the chat slowed. Emily's smile faltered. Her eyes flicked from the screen to him. Then the smile came back, thinner this time. "You're breaking character," she said. "I'm not playing a character, you are. I'm being kidnapped." "No," she said quickly. Then she seemed to dislike how sharp she sounded, because she softened her voice and corrected herself. "No, idols don't get kidnapped." The room went still. Min-jae stared at her. Then he laughed once. It was not because anything was funny. It was a sharp, empty laugh that came out because his brain could not accept the madness of what she had just said. "That's your logic?" Emily's hand moved before either of them seemed ready for it. Smack, the slap echoed through the small room. His head snapped to the side. Pain burned across his cheek. Emily froze. She stared at her own hand as if it had betrayed her. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm sorry." "You yelled." "I didn't mean to. Idols don't yell at people who love them." The live stream kept going. Comments rushed by on the screen. "She slapped him? Okay, that looked real. Still best roleplay ever. Appa looks so cute scared. This is so unhinged. Shipping them." Emily looked at the comments. Then she looked at Min-jae. Something in her expression cracked, but it did not crack into shame. It cracked into irritation. Reality was not following the script she had written in her head, and she hated that. She ended the live stream. The sudden silence felt worse than the noise. The music was still playing softly, but without the chat and the performance, the room felt smaller, more private, more dangerous. Min-jae wished she had kept the stream on. At least then, people were watching. Even if they did not believe him, at least he had not been completely alone with her. Emily lowered the phone. "You made me look bad," she said quietly. "Good," her head tilted. For a second, he thought she might hit him again. Instead, she wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her cropped hoodie. She took a slow breath, then smiled at him in a way that was even more unsettling than her anger. It was too bright, too forgiving, too controlled. "You know what, Appa?" she said cheerfully. "I still choose to forgive you. Stop calling me that we can start fresh," she continued, as if he had not spoken. "Next stream, you're going to dance for them." Min-jae stared at her. "What?" "You're going to dance. I don't know how to dance." Emily blinked. For the first time, she looked truly confused. "What are you talking about?" "I said I don't know how to dance," she laughed softly. "Stop joking around. I'm not joking. All Korean boys know how to dance." For a moment, Min-jae could only stare. Then he laughed again, but this time it came out bigger, rougher. It was the kind of laugh that happens when something is so stupid and terrifying that your body does not know what else to do. "What is wrong with you?" he said. "That's not how any of this works." "I've seen it online," she said. "You've seen idols online. That doesn't mean every Korean man dances." "All of them dance." "No, they don't." "Yes, they do. I'm a finance major," he said, almost shouting now. "I study financial accounting. I came to this country to study. I'm not an idol. I'm not a performer. I don't sing. I don't dance. I don't belong to you." Her smile faded. "Stop lying to me." The laughter died in his throat. Her voice had dropped. It was low now, cold and tight. Her fists were clenched at her sides, knuckles pale against the soft pastel pink of her skirt. "I'm not lying," he said carefully. "I have seen it, Emily. Listen to me. I have seen it," she said louder. Then she turned and swept one arm across a shelf. A stack of albums crashed to the floor. Min-jae flinched. Emily moved to the wall and knocked down a row of photocards. They scattered like playing cards, sliding across the floor under the chair and bed. Then she grabbed a plush toy and threw it at the closet. Her bow clip slipped halfway out of her hair. Her breathing became loud and uneven. "You're supposed to be like them," she said. "I'm a person. You're supposed to be sweet. I'm scared. You're supposed to be grateful. You kidnapped me. You're supposed to love your fans. I don't have fans." She screamed, a short, sharp sound that cut through the room. Then she stopped. That was what scared him most. Not the screaming, the stopping. Because when she stopped, it did not feel like she had calmed down. It felt like something in her mind had shifted into a new place, a quieter place, a place where she had decided what came next. She stood completely still among the mess of albums and photocards. Her breathing evened out. She slowly smoothed the front of her skirt with both hands. Then she reached up, fixed the bow clip in her hair, and smiled. The smile was wide and calm and wrong in every way. "Actually," she said, stepping closer, "we can fix that." Min-jae pressed back into the chair, pulling as far from her as he could. "Fix what?" She walked to one of the shelves and picked something up. He tried to see what it was, but her hand closed around it too quickly. Something small, something dark. Maybe a remote, maybe a syringe, maybe something else. "Emily," he said, forcing the word out. "Don't." She came closer. He thrashed against the chair. The handcuff cut into his wrist. The metal chain rattled. The chair stayed bolted down, solid and cruel beneath him. He wished, in one mad second, that the chair could swallow him. that the floor could open, that anything could take him away from this room and this woman and her bright white ring light. Emily leaned over him. "Don't worry," she whispered. "You'll be perfect." Then everything went dark. Min Jae's body woke with a violent jerk. At first, he thought he had woken up again in the chair. But something was wrong. Everything felt wrong. He was standing. No, his body was standing. He could feel his feet on the floor, but he had not chosen to stand. He could feel his arms at his sides, but they did not feel like his arms anymore. It was like he was trapped somewhere behind his own eyes, far away from the surface of his skin. He tried to move, nothing happened. Then his right arm lifted by itself. His left arm followed. His wrists turned gracefully. His fingers spread into a perfect pose. Panic flooded him. He tried to scream, but his mouth did not open. His legs moved. One foot slid forward, then the other. His body turned with smooth balance. His arms folded and unfolded in time with music playing from the speakers. His head tilted to the beat. His shoulders rolled. His hands moved through the air in shapes he had never learned. He was dancing. But he was not doing it. He could feel everything, every pull in his muscles, every bend of his joints, every shift of his weight. But he was not in control. His body moved as if someone else had reached inside him and taken over. Then he saw the strings. Dozens of thin, nearly transparent threads stretched from his body. They were attached to his wrists, elbows, knees, ankles, shoulders, fingers, and jaw. Some disappeared into the ceiling. Others vanished into the shadows above the ring light. They looked delicate, almost invisible, but every time they pulled, his body obeyed. He tried to fight them. His fingers did not bend. His hands stayed curved at perfect matching angles. His arms rose again. The choreography continued. A song he had never heard before moved through him like electricity through wire. His body knew every step, even though his mind did not. Every movement came 2 counts ahead of his thoughts, as if the dance had already been planned and his body was only following orders. His jaw opened. He had not opened it. His lips pulled into a smile. He had not smiled. The smile stretched across his face, bright and pretty and dead. The ring light shone in front of him. Emily's phone was on the tripod again. She was live. The title of the stream glowed on the screen. "Korean boy dancing for us." The chat erupted. "He's moving so cute now. This is next level effects. Bro turned into a doll." Mannequin roleplay is crazy. His dance is so smooth. How is he doing that? "Emily, this is your best stream." Emily stood behind the camera with her hands clasped against her chest. The room had been cleaned while he was unconscious. The albums were back on the shelves. The photocards were back in perfect rows. Her bow clip was fixed. Her pastel skirt was straight again. She looked calm, proud, and deeply moved. She watched him the way a person watches something they have wanted for so long that they no longer understand it is wrong to have it. He was lagging earlier, she told the chat in a bright voice. But it's fine now. The strings tightened. Min Jae's arms snapped outward in a perfect wave. His body spun. The chat numbers climbed higher and higher. Emily leaned closer to him, close enough that he could smell her perfume. It was strong and artificial, like strawberry candy sprayed over sweat and plastic. "See?" she whispered. "Now you're perfect for them," Min Jae screamed from somewhere deep inside himself. But the scream never reached his mouth. Inside, he was still alive. He was still there. He was trapped in some dark, empty place behind his own eyes, watching his hands move like they belonged to someone else. He felt the strings tug at the hinge of his jaw every time his face was forced into another smile. He felt his legs bend and turn. He felt his shoulders move. He felt his body become something he could only watch. Nobody heard him. Not Emily. Not the chat. Not the people typing hearts and laughing emojis and comments about how real the performance looked. He's so pretty. Best stream ever. I wish I was there. This is so creepy, but I love it. He should do this every night. Not one of them called the police. Not one of them believed the terror behind his eyes. Outside the house, the city continued like nothing had happened. Cars moved through streets. People walked past windows. Sirens wailed somewhere far away, but not for him. Thousands of people lived close enough to help him, and none of them knew his name. His face kept smiling. His body kept dancing. The strings never went slack. The ring light never went out. At some point, Emily changed the song. Min-jae felt his body shift into a new pose before the first beat even dropped. His arms rose over his head. His fingers spread. His chin tilted down just enough to make him look shy. Then the strings pulled again, and his body began another dance. The chat cheered. Emily laughed softly behind the camera. "You're doing so well," she said. "They love you," Min-jae tried to cry. His eyes stayed dry. The strings would not allow tears. They made him blink only when it looked natural. They made him smile only when the camera needed it. They made him wave when Emily told him to wave. They made him bow when the chat asked him to bow. They made him place one hand over his heart when Emily said the fans deserved love. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time became strange inside his body. The room never changed. Pink and blue lights pulsed across the ceiling. The ring light burned white in front of him. The posters watched from the walls. Idle faces smiled down at him, frozen and perfect, as if they were part of the same cruel joke. At some point, Emily ended the live stream. The comments stopped. The music lowered. Min-jae's body froze in place. For one brief second, hope opened inside him. Maybe it was over. Maybe the strings would release. Maybe he would fall to the floor and finally move on his own. Emily walked up to him and placed both hands on his cheeks. His skin crawled, but his body did not pull away. "You were amazing," she whispered. "I knew you could do it." His lips smiled for her. She sighed happily. Then she turned away and looked at the phone screen, checking the replay, reading the comments, smiling at the likes and shares. "You're going to be famous," she said. "Everyone is going to love you. And they'll love me too, because I found you." Min-jae tried again to scream. Nothing, only silence inside. Emily hummed to herself as she adjusted the ring light. Then she looked back at him, eyes shining. "We'll do another stream tomorrow," she said. "Maybe a longer one." The strings twitched. His head nodded. Emily smiled. "That's my good boy." Inside, Min-jae fell apart. But outside, his face stayed perfect. The next morning, campus security received a missing person report. One of Min-jae's classmates said he had vanished after stepping outside during a student event. The police checked nearby streets, campus cameras, and bus stops. They asked questions. They looked through his dorm room. They found his wallet still on his desk, his passport locked in a drawer, and his phone dead in a trash can 2 blocks from campus. Online, Emily posted a new video. In it, Min-jae stood beneath pink and blue lights, smiling sweetly as he danced with impossible grace. The caption read, "He was shy at first, but now he's finally opening up." The video went viral by noon. People argued in the comments. Some said it was special effects. Some said it was a weird art project. Some said he looked scared. Some said that was just part of the act. A few people asked why he never spoke. Emily replied with a heart emoji and wrote, "He's still learning how to be comfortable." That night, she went live again. The ring light turned on. The strings pulled tight, and Min-jae's body began to dance. Story 2. Ring around the rosy. A pocket full of posies. Ashes, ashes, we all fall. Down, 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 down. Mayday. Mayday. This is Flight Orion 742. We are on our way to Hawaii. We have lost control. Mayday. Mayday. We are going down over. Trauma is a strange thing. Sometimes it feels like ice. Sometimes it feels like fire. Sometimes it feels like nothing at all. And that is the worst kind. Because you do not realize it is still inside you until it starts moving. It waits in the quiet parts of your mind. It waits in the places you try not to look at. It can make you cold under a hot sun. It can make your hands shake when nobody is touching you. It can make a normal sound feel like a warning. It can twist a memory so badly that you no longer know which parts happened, which parts you invented, and which parts your brain created because the truth was too heavy to hold. Trauma can make you see things that are not there. It can make you touch things that are not there. It can make you smell smoke when the fire has been out for years. It can make you taste blood in a clean mouth. When I was younger, Mommy and Daddy bought me nice things. When Daddy got angry, those nice things were taken away. Sometimes he destroyed them right in front of me. Other children hid candy, notes, or small toys under their beds. I hid in my room with the curtains closed and made little potions in puddles of rainwater. I had a bright, busy mind. I could obsess over the smallest things for days. One of those things was my Elsa doll. I loved that doll. She had shiny hair and a blue dress that sparkled in the light. I carried her everywhere for a while. I brushed her hair until it became frizzy. I made up stories for her. I gave her a voice. Then one day, Dad melted her on the barbecue. He said it was punishment. I remember standing in the yard and watching the plastic soften and twist over the heat. I remember the smell, sharp and wrong. I remember the way her face changed as it melted. What I remember most is Dad smiling. His eyes were wild, and his mouth was open in a grin like he was enjoying it. I did not understand that. If this was punishment, why did he look happy? When Dad finally left us, relief washed over me so strongly that it almost felt like guilt. I was happy, empty, and lonely all at the same time. The house became quieter. Nobody slammed doors as hard. Nobody stood too close while yelling. Nobody grabbed my things and made me watch them break. But my body did not believe he was gone. I still hid things. If I made a mistake, I tucked my phone under my pillow. I shoved my laptop under my bed. I flinched when someone raised their voice. I hid the things I loved before anyone could take them from me. It was not a choice. It was a reflex, a constant little spark in my nerves. Hide it, protect it, bury it, do not let him find it. Because Dad had never truly left. I could still hear him sometimes. I could smell his cologne in the air, the heavy kind that made my throat close. I could feel his thin fingers on my neck in dreams. I could hear his footsteps, even when the house was empty. When I was 10, I started hiding my favorite things outside. My dolls, my best pencils, my first iPhone. I waited until Mom was asleep. Then I grabbed a flashlight and crept downstairs. My bare feet brushed the cold marble steps. Outside, the warm night air touched my face and felt like freedom. I knelt in Mom's flower beds and dug into the dirt with both hands. The soil got under my nails and stuck to my palms. I wrapped my treasures in plastic bags so they would not get ruined. Then I buried them under the roses. Daddy would never find them there. At least, that was what I believed. The island was hotter than any memory I had. The heat did not just sit on your skin. It pressed into you. It crawled under your clothes and filled your lungs. It made every breath feel old. Every thought moved slowly, like it had to drag itself through sand. "Hey, Kira." The voice cut through my thoughts and dragged me back to the world. A world of burning sunlight on my legs, hair stuck to my face, and the smell of cooked meat twisting through the air. "There's a bear behind you. There are no bears on an uninhabited island," I muttered, waving blindly at her hand. A shadow dropped down beside me. Of course it was Quinn. Quinn was chaos in human form. She had the energy of a golden retriever, waking you up by putting its whole wet nose in your face. Loud, pretty, annoying, and impossible to ignore. Sometimes, if I tried hard enough, I could pretend I was somewhere else. I could imagine I was back home, lying on a pool float with a cold Coke Zero in my hand, instead of trapped on an Indonesian island with no clean water and no future. But that morning, imagination was too hard. Creativity needed food, and I was running out of both. Home was thousands of miles away. Coke Zero did not exist anymore. Normal life had crashed, burned, and sunk into the sea. I was lying on dry sand, covered in mosquito bites, sweating so much that my clothes stuck to me like another layer of skin. No matter how I curled my body, I could not escape the sun. Deserted islands were supposed to be beautiful. That was what movies showed you. White sand, clear water, palm trees, peace, and yes, the shallows in front of me were calm and blue. Yes, the sand was white and soft, even if it burned the soles of my feet. Behind us, thick trees formed a green wall around the island, their shadows deep and full of insects. We still had not explored most of that place. Maybe only 20%. Maybe less. We had never found a village, a road, a dock, or anything that proved other people had ever been there. Beyond the shore was only ocean. A huge stretch of blue, meeting more blue at the horizon. People think darkness is terrifying. And it is. But after 2 years of staring at that endless blue line, I can tell you that blue is worse. Darkness is honest. Darkness tells you there is nothing. Blue lies. Blue looks peaceful. Blue looks hopeful. Blue makes you think a ship might appear. A plane might pass. Rescue might come if you just wait another day. For 2 years, that horizon made me lie to myself. For 2 years, I looked at it and thought, maybe today. I hated it. I wanted the void instead. At least the void would not pretend. Then the smell of breakfast drifted into my nose and made my brain stop. Food, the meat, had lasted over a week, rationed carefully between us. But like everything else, it would run out. "Kira," Quinn said, her voice drilling into my skull, "I know you're pretending to be asleep." The sun burned red through my closed eyelids. "I'm awake," I mumbled, rolling onto my stomach. "What do you want?" She dropped the sweet act immediately. "Are you still crying over him?" She laughed, and for one tiny, beautiful second, I let myself enjoy it. For 1 second, we were just two girls again. Not survivors, not starving, not half mad under a sun that would not stop watching us. Then something hit the back of my head. I flinched. It was a shell. Reese. Definitely Reese. Mornings on the island were always a mess. I cracked one eye open and rolled onto my side. Quinn's shadow did not line up with the sun quite right because she was half sitting in the shade. She had one leg crossed over the other, like she was posing on a beach vacation and not slowly dying. Her dirty blonde curls were tangled with dying flowers and dry weeds. They framed her heart-shaped face like some ruined fairy crown. She wore the same clothes she had worn yesterday, and the day before that, and for too many days before that to count. High-waisted shorts, and what was left of a bikini top. Quinn shaded her eyes and smiled up at the sun. Sometimes she looked like the sun herself. A bright, annoying, golden thing you could not escape. "You need couples therapy," she said. "As soon as we get home, I'm dragging you and Chase to a therapist." I swear I know at least 3. I did not answer. It was too hot to waste energy. Trying to explain to Quinn Carlisle that I was asexual was already hard enough under normal conditions. Trying to explain it while starving on an island felt like losing a fight before it started. She shifted closer, and I squeezed my eyes shut. Quinn Carlisle had once been the last person I expected to become my friend. She had been offended by my existence for most of my life. In kindergarten, she stole my milk during nap time. She told everyone I had pooped myself. She spread a rumor that I ate the class hamster. In middle school, things got worse. The first time she found out I had a crush on someone, she called my mother and told her I was pregnant. When the plane crashed, she was about as useful as the pilots, which meant not useful at all. She had no survival skills. She stayed in her makeshift tent and complained about everything. No phone, no makeup, no clean clothes, no real bed. She refused to share snacks. She refused to help search the island. She almost stepped into a spider nest. She clung to people too. First me, then Chase, then Jem, because Jem made the mistake of giving her a jacket when she was cold. At the start, Reese and I were chosen to be in charge. Reese had been our valedictorian, and I guess everyone thought that meant he knew things. I eventually sent Quinn with a group to search for water, mostly to get her away from camp, and somehow they found it. A river, a real river about an hour's hike from our camp. For a while, that river saved us. Humans adapt quickly when dying's the other option. When Quinn came back from that trip, she was different. Quieter, sweaty, too sweaty. Her hair was sticky, her face was pale, and she kept saying it was too hot, then shivering as soon as we moved her into the shade. At first, I thought it was just the heat. Then Reese stared at her and muttered, "Quinn's eyes are glowing." He was right. Her eyes looked strange, wet and bright, almost shiny, like pink eye, but worse. We pulled her into the medical tent, which was really just a patch of shade and a few torn airplane blankets. After arguing with her, while she mumbled nonsense, we managed to roll up her pant leg. Her knee had swollen to the size of an apple. Snake bite. None of us said it out loud, but we all knew what it meant. Out there, with no hospital and almost no medicine, a snake bite could be a death sentence. I think that was when Quinn Carlisle realized being awful was a waste of time. Maybe it happened when she woke up shivering and saw someone digging a grave for her. Maybe it happened when I kept telling her, "Quinn, I am not going to murder you in your sleep," until she finally passed out. Chase watched over her for the next few days. We kept her fever down with a wet shirt on her forehead. We fed her tiny pieces of cereal bar from the ration pile. Her fever slowly dropped. When she finally woke up properly, the first thing she asked for was the stuffed alpaca from her suitcase. But she was different after that. Not kind, exactly. Quinn did not become a saint, but she softened. The first time I gave her water and she spat, "Thanks," like it physically hurt her, I knew we had made progress. 2 years later, she was practically my best friend. A terrible best friend, but still. I could feel her staring at me now, chin resting on her fist. "Kira, looking at you is making me depressed." "It wasn't a sex thing," I groaned. "I just broke up with him." "Okay, but why?" she asked. "He is literally your only chance of getting laid." "Quinn," I bit back a hiss of frustration. We had maybe 3 days to find a new water source before things got bad. The river had dried up in the heat, and my body already felt wrong. My head was heavy. My mouth tasted like dust. I was trying to sleep through hunger, thirst, and sunlight, and Quinn was sitting there, playing relationship counselor. "I'm trying to sleep," I said. "Go annoy Reese." She rolled onto her stomach and mumbled into the sand. "Reese is doing Reese stuff." Then go join him. She blew a raspberry in my face, then threw herself onto me. One of her legs hooked around my waist, and the other locked me in place when I tried to shove her off. I'm bored, she said. Her toes dug into the sand as I struggled under her weight. She leaned closer, smelling faintly of salt water and sweat. There is nothing to do on this island except watch your boy sulk himself into an early grave and watch Mr. Sandcastle build Buckingham Palace out of dirt. Her eyes lit up, and a childish grin spread across her face. So tell me, what happened? I sat up quickly and slapped a mosquito on my arm. We broke up. That's it. But of course that was not it. Trauma brings people together, but it also tears them apart. It makes you need someone, then makes you hate how much you need them. The crash was still inside me. It played again and again in my mind, like a rerun of a show where every episode was the season finale. We had been a normal class of high school students once. We had problems that felt huge back then. Crushes, exams, parents, friendships, the kind of things that seem like the whole world until the world breaks open under your feet. Jace Crawford was dead now. Infection took him. But sometimes I still heard him singing Sweet Caroline badly by the fire. Isabel Adams was dead too. She had given me her oxygen mask during the crash. She had brought a printed travel itinerary for the trip. Later, we used it as toilet paper. I did not know what to expect when I first got on the plane. It was my first flight, and I was terrified. I had taken several of my mom's sleeping pills because I did not want to be awake for takeoff. I was barely conscious when everything went wrong. At first, it seemed like it would be fine. The pilot's voice came through the speakers, calm and steady, telling us to stay in our seats. My ears were pressurized, and everything sounded dull and far away. Then the plane jerked violently. I tried to stand, and someone shoved me back down. I opened my mouth to say I was going to throw up, but the plane dropped. After that, the memory comes in pieces. My head hit the overhead compartment. People screamed. The plane fell. My hair flew upward. Wind cut my cheeks. I reached for an oxygen mask, but there were none left. I remember thinking, what do I do? I don't want to die. I don't want to die like this. 17 years of pain and fear and trying to survive my own life, and I was going to die in a plane crash? I woke up 3 times during the fall. The first time, I heard our teacher screaming as fire took her. I saw skin peel back. I saw her mouth open wide, teeth showing through smoke, begging for mercy nobody could give her. The second time, I understood I was trapped. A piece of the wing had gone through my arm. I could not feel the wound. I could only feel blood, warm and wet, soaking my shirt. My head rolled to the side. My arms felt loose and wrong, like doll parts. Hands grabbed my shoulders. Through the smoke, Chase Oliver appeared in front of me like a ghost. At first, I thought he was dead already. Then time seemed to speed up, and my senses returned all at once. His eyes were wide. An oxygen mask covered his mouth. His lips were moving, but I could not understand him. His words were drowned by screams and roaring wind. Smoke crawled over the broken seats. Flames spread in bright orange lines. A man burned in the aisle, his body twisting, his skin melting down his face. Kira. Chase's voice pulled me back. Hey, eyes on me, okay? When I could not focus, he grabbed my face with both hands and forced me to look at him. Then he wrapped his arms around me. His head pressed against my shoulder. He held on tightly and braced both of us. Impact, he screamed into my shoulder right before it happened. The crash knocked me unconscious again. My brain bounced inside my skull. For 1 second before the darkness came, I looked outside and saw blue. Everything was falling into blue. Impact cut my teeth into my lower lip. It threw us from our seats and onto the ground. No, not ground. Bodies, arms, legs, torsos, all tangled together like broken dolls. But Chase was still holding me. He cradled my head in his arms, and his voice became a dull echo, repeating the same words over and over. It's going to be okay, and somehow, in the worst possible way, it was. We survived. For 2 years, we survived together. And then, recently, I realized I could not keep loving him the way I had. I broke up with him, not because I did not love him anymore, but because loving someone on an island like that felt impossible. We were starving. We were thirsty. We were surrounded by death. Every promise felt cruel. Every kiss felt like pretending tomorrow was certain. I did not explain all of that to Quinn. She already knew most of it. She had spent the afternoon moving around the camp like a gossip-hungry butterfly, collecting information from both sides. Once she had enough drama to feed on, Quinn jumped to her feet. Her arms spun for balance before she steadied herself. So, she said, "You broke up because everything is terrible, and now he's being weird about it?" I shrugged. "Pretty much. Okay, but why are you pushing him away?" she demanded. "And do not give me that 'I'm going to die soon' excuse. Wouldn't you rather die with someone than die lonely?" I laughed, and for a moment the ocean seemed to laugh with me. "Oh my God," Quinn gasped. "You are still into him," I glared at her. "Don't. You should get back with him," she sang. "Reese is being weird too because of bro code or whatever, so if you want peace on this island, talk to Chase." Her tone made it clear that she did not see this as a suggestion. "Quinn, can I get a little help?" The new voice was a welcome distraction. Reese sat cross-legged a few feet away, focused on his latest sandcastle. Once, he had been our valedictorian. He had surfer boy energy mixed with class clown charm. He was still wearing his old varsity jacket over a stained shirt and cut-off jeans. On top of his thick blonde curls sat a crown made from dead flowers and animal bones. Quinn had made it for his 18th birthday. He never took it off. Reese used to act like a leader. Now almost everyone was dead, and his only happy place was making castles out of sand. He did not look up from his work. His eyes were half closed, and a strange little smile sat on his mouth. I used to think losing your mind meant screaming and tearing out your hair, but sometimes losing your mind was quieter than that. Sometimes it was just breaking in a way nobody could fix. Reese patted wet sand into place. "Can someone grab me water for my moat?" he asked. Quinn groaned loudly. "You have legs? Well, yeah," Reese muttered as he filled a plastic cup with wet sand and flipped it upside down. For a second, he reminded me of my little cousin playing at the beach. But Reese was not a child. He was a traumatized 19-year-old trying to hold himself together with sand and habit. "I just can't be bothered getting up," he said. "Boys," Quinn said, rolling her eyes at me. She stood. "I'll be back in a second, wait." I did not know why I followed her. I jumped to my feet too quickly, and the world tilted sideways. The beach blurred, then sharpened, then blurred again. One look at the sky made me regret standing. The sun hung above us, sharp and bright, burning my face. I stumbled and almost stepped on Reese's castle. I looked down at my dirty, blood-streaked feet. When was the last time I had washed properly? Kira? I jerked my head up. Quinn was watching me with a frown. "You okay?" I blinked sand from my eyes. My chest suddenly felt heavy, like I was trying to breathe through cloth. "Yeah," I said, but the word felt wrong in my mouth. "I'll get the water," I added. I took the plastic cup from Reese and looked toward the sea. In the distance, under the late sun, a familiar figure sat in the shallows. His legs were crossed. His shadow stretched long across the sand. I should talk to him anyway, I said. Quinn followed my gaze. Her smile faded for half a second. Yeah, she said. You did break up with him in literally the worst way possible. Then her expression brightened. Wait, I have an idea. She ran into the shade of the trees and came back 10 seconds later holding breakfast. 3 meat skewers. She tossed one to Reese and handed one to me. That boy needs to eat, she said. I nodded and tucked the skewer into my jeans. I told you. I'm not eating that, Reese muttered, looking away with disgust. Why not? Quinn asked, taking a bite from her own skewer. Blood and grease shone on the meat. Just pretend it's chicken. Reese lowered his head. His hands shook as he sifted sand through his fingers. He did not use it for his castle. He just let it fall. I have valid reasons not to eat it, he said. Quinn laughed. You're being a baby? I'm the baby? Reese snapped, his head lifting. His eyes flashed with anger. For 1 second, I thought he might come back to himself. I thought he might stand and become the leader we needed again. But then his gaze slid back down to his sandcastle. You're a masochist, Quinn, he muttered. She gasped dramatically. How dare you? Seriously, though, stop being so sensitive. I'm sorry. Sensitive? Yeah, sensitive. It's survival. Idiot. You need to eat, he laughed, and it was the first real laugh I had heard from him in a long time. Do I, though? Don't be a smartass. I'm not being a smartass. I'm stating the obvious. I almost smiled as I turned away. Their voices faded behind me into the sound of waves. Quinn and Reese were made for each other, but I was not going to say that out loud. I walked down the sand toward the shallows with a peace offering in my hand. Each step was harder than it should have been. The sun seemed brighter when I was alone. Sweat ran down my forehead. My skin felt sticky and tight. My legs trembled. Then I reached the water. The coolness around my ankles made me want to cry. Chase sat in his usual spot, exactly where he always sat now. Legs crossed, arms folded, waiting for rescue, or maybe waiting for nothing. His back was to me. His brown curls were longer than they had been before the crash, tied back into a rough ponytail. I stopped. Something in my chest loosened and hurt. Chase, since I broke up with him, he had been distant. He spent most of his time in the shallows, avoiding everyone else. Before the crash, he had been the quiet, slightly pretentious kid who wrote stories in notebooks and carried a guitar around like it was part of his body. He had a sharp, dry way of talking that made me laugh even when I did not want to. We had worked on a project together once, and I had barely remembered his name. Then the plane crashed. Trauma tied us together. For 2 years, Chase became my other half. Someone I cared about more than I knew how to admit. Someone I loved in the middle of hunger, death, and fear. But the idea that we were going to die together made me push him away. We had maybe 2 days to find clean water. Maybe 3, if we were lucky. I did not have space in my body for a boyfriend. I barely had space to stay alive. But the more I looked at him, the more I knew Quinn was right in that terrible, smug way of hers. I was not over him. I stepped into the water and sat beside him. The cold rushed through my shorts and cooled my burning skin. Chase did not move. His eyes stayed on the tide. "Hey," I said. My voice sounded small. I pulled out the skewer and held it toward him. He shifted away, still staring at the ocean. "I'm not hungry. You need to eat," I said, fighting the urge to shout. Chase leaned back on his elbows and sighed. His face looked strangely peaceful. The sun was setting behind him now, catching in his hair and turning the edges red and orange. Finally, he looked at me. Something twisted in my stomach. "Do you regret it?" he asked. Yes, I whispered before I could stop myself. His breathing changed. It came out sharp and uneven. Wrong, this did not feel like one of his panic attacks. I reached for his hand and curled my fingers around his, but he pulled away. His eyes met mine. They looked hollow and too blue, like the ocean, like the sky, like the endless nothing that had been pressing down on me for 2 years. "Then why did you do it?" he asked. The answer clogged my throat. I had to. I had to. I had to. I had to, I spat, and my voice cracked. Chase scoffed. "Oh, you had to?" His voice was bitter. When he looked at me with one eyebrow raised, nausea crept up my throat. "Sure," he said. I swallowed hard. He was angry. He had every right to be angry, but he would get over it. He knew why I did it. He knew what this place did to people. I would let him sulk a little longer. That was the least I could do. I stretched my legs in the water and changed the subject, because neither of us wanted to keep having that conversation. "When we get home," I said, "what's the first thing you're going to do?" He surprised me by laughing. The sound pulled me closer. I rested my head lightly on his shoulder, and he did not push me away. He was warm. His hair tickled my neck. It reminded me of those first nights after the crash, when we all sat around the fire and stared into the orange light, waiting for rescue. Back then, I had still believed everything would be okay. Then, days passed. Food ran low. People died. Infection, poison, jellyfish stings. And later, starvation. Starvation was not just hunger. Hunger was polite compared to starvation. Starvation was hollow and angry. It gnawed at you from the inside. It made your thoughts sharp. It made your body feel like an enemy. "I left my laptop on," Chase said with a sigh. "I was playing Minecraft before we left." He tipped his head back and groaned. "Man, I'd probably raid my mom's fridge and sleep for 2 weeks." I looked at him. "You wouldn't even say hello to your parents first?" His mouth curved. His nose scrunched the way it always did when he tried not to laugh. "I'll skip the welcome party and go play Minecraft, but your parents would want to see you," I said, nudging him. Sitting there with him felt like home. You can't just avoid them. He stretched out like a cat. "I don't know," he said. "Would you go see your parents after being stuck on an island for 2 years?" For 1 second, I imagined it. Me standing in my mother's perfect kitchen, my feet dirty, my hair matted, my skin burned and scarred, opening the fridge and leaving streaks of blood and grime on the clean white handle. I shivered and pushed the image away. "Holy crap," I muttered. "Exactly," Chase said, as if he had read my mind. Silence settled between us, but it was comfortable. I listened to the water moving over my toes. "That's why I think being here is better," Chase said quietly. He wrapped his arms around his knees. "If we're here, we don't have to think about all of that." He did not finish the sentence. I was glad he did not. "Chase," I said without thinking. His eyes stayed on the ocean. "Yeah? Am I going to die?" I whispered. He did not answer right away. That was worse than any answer. "Do you want me to make it sound nice?" he asked, "or do you want the truth?" "Make it sound nice," I said. Then I hesitated. "No, tell me the truth." I saw the tiny smirk he tried to hide. "You sure?" "Positive." He turned to me suddenly, eyes wide and serious. "We're going to starve to death," he said softly. "The meat is almost gone, and we still haven't found another water source." Then he laughed once, but it sounded broken. "So unless a miracle happens and it actually rains, yeah, you're going to die." "Oh, I'm going to die, but you're not?" I shot back. Chase looked away. "I've recently become impervious." I shoved him. "Because we broke up?" He winked. "And other reasons. Hey, Kira." Quinn's voice came from behind us. "Did you finally kiss?" I saw her jumping up and down near Reese. Make-up sex is better than therapy. I buried my face in my knees. She is so embarrassing. I mean, sure, Chase said. I looked at him. What? I'd kiss you, he said. If I wasn't. Impervious? I said, mocking him. But he did not laugh this time. Kira, he said, why are you here? The question cut through me. Because you're my friend. No, he said. Why are you here? He gestured around us. The sun beat down on my head. My body felt stiff and weak. The world swayed. I tipped sideways into him, and he jumped up, his shadow stretching long across the water. You're starving, he said. You're dehydrated, and you have sunstroke. You are going to die if you don't get into shade right now. I laughed, even though my body felt like wet sand. So you can sit in the sun all day, but I can't? What's wrong with her? Quinn's voice floated closer. I saw her standing over me with her arms crossed, curls stuck to her sweaty face. She was a golden blur spinning with the rest of the world. Sunstroke, Chase snapped. If we don't cool her down, she'll die. Grab her legs. Quinn hesitated. But just do it. Chase, Quinn said, and her voice hardened. He let out a frustrated breath. Yes, I know. But she's going to die. Their argument faded as another sound rose over everything. A rumble. At first, my mind thought bear. But there were no bears on islands like this. Right? I lay on my back with Chase and Quinn above me, their mouths moving fast. Then the rumble swallowed their voices completely. I blinked. Near the horizon, beside the burning orange sun, I saw a dot. I blinked again. The dot moved. Then it moved closer. No, my heart clenched. It was coming toward us. By the time Chase and Quinn noticed, their heads turned toward the sky, too. Their eyes widened. I was screaming before I knew I had stood up. My legs shook. My body fought me. The rumbling filled my skull. The heat pressed harder against my face. Sweat ran down my skin. I looked at my hands and saw sand, blood, and dirt stuck to them. Suddenly, everything hit me at once. The heat, my filthy clothes, my hair hanging in tangled, bloody ropes, the metallic taste in my mouth, the feeling that bugs were crawling on my tongue, under my skin, over my arms. I swiped at my clothes and face, trying to brush away insects that might not have been there. Hey! I screamed, waving my arms. The dot became a shape. I could see spinning blades cutting through the blue. A helicopter. A sound tore from my throat. I dropped to my knees, sobbing. I did not know if I was laughing or crying. Maybe both. The helicopter lowered toward us, whipping cool air over my face. I could see the glass panels. I could see words printed on the side. United Aerospace Corps, Emergency Response. Under the dying light of the sun, Quinn ran in wild circles, arms waving, grin huge on her face. Hey, assholes, she shouted. Even Reese stood up. His eyes were wide, his mouth stretched into a smile. But Chase was frozen. His eyes were fixed on the helicopter. His hair whipped across his face. The hope in his expression faded into something painful that I did not understand. We can't get on that helicopter, he shouted over the noise. Kira, you know we can't. I stopped waving. A cold knot formed in my stomach. He was right. People would ask questions. Questions I did not know how to answer. Quinn would talk. Reese was not stable enough to lie. None of us were. I saw it in their faces. Quinn stopped running. Reese slowly sank back onto the sand. But this was rescue. This was leaving. This was going home. Are you insane? I screamed. I stumbled toward Chase and wrapped my arms around him. But this time, he felt cold. Come with me, I said. Please, just come with me. My stomach turned at the thought of home, of questions, of what we had done. But it was still home. I wanted it more than anything. I wanted to go home with him. I grabbed his face in my hands. It'll be okay, I told him. I promise. For a second, he looked like he might agree. Tears shone in his eyes. His lips parted. He was about to say okay. Then he pulled away. But we can't go, he whispered. The helicopter landed, throwing sand into the air. Figures stepped out in protective gear. Their voices reached me as muffled echoes, not quite words. I could only focus on Chase. I know what we did, I said, forcing the words out. But we don't have to say anything. I grabbed his hand. We can go home. I pulled him, then shoved him, but he only backed away. In 3 steps, he joined Quinn and Reese. Miss. The strangers' voices grew louder. Hands grabbed me. I screamed. Kira? Sweetie, can you hear me? I was dragged backward. My mouth moved, but no sound came out at first. Wait, what about them? I lurched forward. No, wait, what about them? You're leaving them behind. Someone lifted me carefully and placed me onto a plastic seat that smelled like bleach. The helicopter doors shut. I twisted around and pressed my face against the window. I have friends down there, I said, trying to sound calm while bile rose in my throat. The bile tasted wrong. It tasted like something moving. Friends? A voice asked. I turned. A woman with short blonde hair sat across from me. Her voice was soft, but it cut through everything. Sweetie, you've been through something terrible, she said. But I need you to look at me. I stared at her. Kira, she said gently. You are the only survivor of the Orion 752 crash. Each word landed like a blade. There was nobody else alive on that island, but you know. I choked. No, there are. The woman tilted her head. Were there survivors on the island with you? I looked out the window. As the helicopter rose, Chase stood on the sand with his arms folded, looking directly at me. Quinn and Reese stood beside him. Very slowly, Chase shook his head. The blonde woman was looking at him too, or at least it felt like she was. Kira, she said. I turned back to her. Her eyes were sharp now, too sharp. They seemed to cut through me and see everything I had done. Are there any survivors? She asked, or aren't there? I blinked. Chase was gone. Then I remembered. I was wearing his skull on my head. His blood was on my cheeks. His taste was in my mouth. Maybe that was why the woman was sitting so far away from me. No, I whispered. The word felt like vomit, and vomit tasted like Chase. I looked back through the window. The trees blurred below us. The beach shrank. The island became small and bright under the sun. For 1 second, I thought the woman's eyes moved toward the trees, like she was following someone I could no longer see. I'm the only one, I said. Each word hurt. Her eyes returned to mine. Then her lips curved into a smile. Good, she said. Story 3. We were all friends, just kids playing tag in the late afternoon, running through the narrow lanes behind our homes like we owned the whole neighborhood. At that age, the world felt small and safe. Every street had a memory. Every wall had a mark from some old game. Every corner had a place to hide. We knew which houses had angry dogs, which old women would yell if a ball hit their door, and which shops would still give us candy if we had only a few coins. That day started like any other. There were 7 of us playing, maybe 8 if I count my older brother, though he never liked being counted as one of the kids. He was only a few years older than me, but he always acted like he was already an adult. He liked giving orders. He liked deciding the rules. He liked reminding everyone that he was older, stronger, and smarter. Most of the time I found it annoying, but I still liked when he joined us. He was my brother, and when he was on my side, I felt safer. We had been playing tag for almost an hour. Our shirts were sticking to our backs. Our faces were hot. Dust clung to our legs and arms, and every time someone ran too fast around a corner, the others would shout and laugh. The sun was beginning to drop lower, turning the sides of the buildings orange. It was that strange time of day when parents had not started calling children home yet, but everyone knew they would soon. I was chasing one of my friends, a thin boy named Samir, who was fast enough to make everyone angry. He always ran just far enough ahead that you thought you could catch him. Then he would laugh and slip away. I chased him down one lane, then another, past the back of the old tailor shop and around a broken water pump. The others followed behind us. Shouting, Samir cut left suddenly and ran toward a narrow gap between two tall buildings. The moment I saw where he was going, I slowed down. The laughter behind me faded. Someone said, "Hey, don't go in there." Samir did not stop. He ran straight into the alley. For a second, we all stood there in silence, watching him disappear between the buildings. The alley was so narrow that two people could barely walk side by side inside it. From where we stood, it looked like a dark crack in the neighborhood, a place where sunlight did not belong. "That alley is forbidden," one of the boys said. We all knew that. No adult had ever clearly explained why we were not supposed to go through it. They only told us not to. Some said there were snakes in there. Some said scorpions lived under the trash. Some said the ground was rotten and you could sink into it if you stepped in the wrong place. Other kids told worse stories. They said people had gone in and come out sick. They said stray dogs would not enter it. They said if you walked through it after sunset, something would follow you home. I did not believe all of that. Not completely. But I had never gone through the alley either. Samir appeared on the other side of the alley a few moments later. He was standing in the light beyond it, waving both hands and laughing. "You can't catch me now," he shouted. We stared at him. Then we looked at each other. "What do we do now?" one of my friends asked. I tried to sound braver than I felt. "We have to go too," I said. "What else are we supposed to do?" My older brother grabbed my shoulder. "No," he said. "There are snakes and scorpions in there." His voice was serious, and that made me nervous. My brother loved showing off. He loved calling other people cowards. If even he did not want to go into the alley, maybe there really was something wrong with it. But the others did not want to look scared. Samir was still on the other side, laughing at us. That was enough to make one of the boys step forward. He put one foot into the alley, then another. He turned back and gave us a look like he was proving something. Then he started walking. Another friend followed. Then another. Soon almost everyone had gone in. My brother watched them, his jaw tight. "We should move too now," he said finally. He stepped into the alley. I followed right behind him. The first thing that hit me was the smell. It was awful. Not just the smell of garbage, but many kinds of rot mixed together. Old food, wet paper, spoiled fruit, dead rats, broken drains, and something sour that burned the nose. I covered my mouth with my shirt, but it did not help much. The alley was worse inside than it looked from outside. It was a narrow gap between two large buildings. The walls rose high on both sides, stained black and green with dampness. The windows above us were small and dirty. People threw garbage from those windows all the time. That was why kids called it the alley, where it rained trash. Even when no one was throwing anything, it felt like something could drop from above at any second. The ground was not really ground anymore. It was buried under layers of filth. Plastic bags, broken glass, rotten vegetables, paper, old cloth, pieces of wood, and things I did not want to identify were pressed together under our feet. Some places were soft. Some places were hard. Every step made a wet sound. I tried to put my feet only where my brothers stepped. Ahead of us, our friends were moving quickly, laughing now that they had almost crossed. Their voices echoed strangely between the walls. Samir was calling them from the other end. The alley was not very long, but once we were inside, it felt longer than it should have been. The deeper we went, the quieter everything became. At first, I could still hear the neighborhood outside. A bicycle bell, someone calling from a window, a radio playing somewhere, the bark of a dog. But with each step, those sounds grew softer. Soon they were gone. Even the voices of our friends seemed distant. I looked back once. The entrance behind us was still there, but it seemed smaller now, like it had pulled away from us. The light outside looked pale and far. My brother kept walking. I stayed close. "Don't step too deep," he muttered. "There could be anything under this stuff." I nodded, though he was not looking at me. We moved carefully, lifting our feet high and setting them down slowly. The trash shifted under us. Something cracked under my shoe and I froze, but it was only a piece of plastic. A few steps later, something else popped softly, and a bad smell rose up from the ground. I wanted to get out of there. I wanted sunlight, open air, and the sound of my friends laughing like normal children. Then my brother stopped. I bumped into his back. "What happened?" I asked. He did not answer. His eyes were fixed on the ground. Something had crunched under his foot. It was not like plastic or glass. It was dry and brittle, like a thin bone breaking. He slowly lifted his shoe. There was something white buried in the trash. At first, I thought it was a broken bowl or a piece of old plaster. It was half hidden under black dirt and wet paper. My brother bent down and brushed garbage away from it with his fingers. "Don't touch that," I whispered. He ignored me. He grabbed the white thing and pulled. It came free with a soft sucking sound. When I saw what he was holding, my body went cold. It was a skull, not a toy, not a mask, not some broken decoration, a real skull. It was small enough for my brother to hold in both hands, but not small like an animal's skull. It looked human, dirty, cracked, yellow-white in places, with empty holes where the eyes should have been. Dark mud clung to the teeth. My legs began to tremble. "This is I could not finish. It's a skull," my brother said. His voice was calm, too calm. "Throw it away," I said quickly. "Please, we need to go." But he did not throw it away. He stood there in the middle of that filthy alley, turning the skull slowly in his hands. His fingers moved over it carefully. He traced the cracks in the bone. He touched the empty eye sockets. His face had changed. The brother I knew, the one who joked and shouted and bossed me around, was still there, but something else was looking through him now. He smiled. It was not a normal smile. He looked at me and said, "Help me crush this into pieces." I stared at him. "What?" "Help me crush it," he said again. "No," I said. "No, what is wrong with you? We should leave. We don't know how this got here." "What's the point of knowing that?" he asked. His voice sounded annoyed, like I was being difficult over something simple. Then he looked down and picked up a brick from the trash. I stepped back. "Stop," I said. He placed the skull on a flat piece of broken concrete. Then he raised the brick. "Stop it," I said louder. He brought the brick down. The skull cracked. The sound went through me like a needle. It was not loud, but it was horrible. A dry, hollow break. My stomach turned. My brother lifted the brick again and hit the skull a second time. A piece of bone broke away and fell into the garbage. I grabbed his arm. "Let's go," I said. "Please, leave it." He pulled his arm free and looked at me. His eyes were wet, not with fear, with something like joy. "There are many more skulls here," he said. I froze. "What?" He knelt and began digging through the trash. "No," I whispered. "No, don't," but he did. He pulled out another skull, then another, then another. They were buried all around us, hidden under garbage and dirt. Some were whole, some were cracked, Some were missing jaws. Some had black stains across the forehead. He found them in places where we had almost stepped. He found one under a pile of plastic bags. He found one wedged between bricks. He found one so deep in the muck that it came out coated in black slime. Soon there were several skulls lined up in front of me. Their empty eyes faced upward. My brother stood over them, breathing hard. "We have to crush all of these," he said. "Help me." "No," I said. He looked confused, as if I had refused to help him carry groceries. "I won't do it," I said. "I'm leaving." I turned and started walking back. Behind me, my brother made a sound. At first, I thought he had hurt himself. Then I realized he was crying. "No," he said through sobs. "Don't go." I stopped. I hated hearing my brother cry. He almost never did. Even when he got hurt, he would hold it in. So when I heard him crying in that alley, something in me weakened. I turned around. He was standing among the skulls, tears running down his dusty face. "Please," he said. "Don't leave me for a moment." He looked like my brother again. Scared, lost, young, I almost went back to him. Then his hand moved toward the skulls again. I stepped away. "No," I said. "I'm going." His face twisted. He stood up slowly, still crying. Then he took off his belt. At first, I did not understand what he was doing. He threaded the belt through the openings of the skulls, forcing the leather through the jaws and eye holes. One by one, he tied them together. The skulls knocked against each other with dry, clicking sounds. "What are you doing?" I asked. He did not answer. He hung the belt around his neck. The skulls rested against his chest like some horrible necklace. They clattered whenever he moved. Then he picked up one skull in each hand and started walking toward me. I ran. I did not think. I did not wait. I turned and ran through the alley as fast as I could. The trash pulled at my shoes. My feet sank into soft places. Something sharp cut my ankle, but I did not stop. Behind me, I heard my brother coming. The skulls around his neck clashed together. Clack, clack, clack. It sounded like a skeleton running after me. "You never listened to me," he cried. His voice echoed off the walls. "You never listen." I ran harder. The alley seemed longer now. The exit ahead looked close, then far, then close again. The air was thick. My lungs burned from the smell. I could hear my brother behind me, sobbing and calling out. The skulls knocking together with every step. "You're my younger brother," he shouted. "You're supposed to listen to me." I did not answer. I only ran. Finally, I burst out of the alley and stumbled into the open lane on the other side. My friends were there. They were standing together, laughing about something, until they saw my face. "What happened?" Samir asked. "My brother," I panted. He found skulls. He's acting strange. We have to go." Before I could explain more, my brother came out of the alley. He was still crying. The skulls hung around his neck. He held one in each hand. Dirt and slime covered his clothes. His eyes were red, and his cheeks were wet with tears. My friends went silent. My brother pointed at me. "Even though he is my younger brother, he doesn't listen to me," he said. "What happened?" one of the boys asked. "I told him to help me crush these skulls," my brother said, and he ran away. He held up the skulls like proof. I expected my friends to scream. I expected them to back away. I expected them to call him crazy. Instead, they only stared. They stared at the skulls for a long time. Too long. Their faces changed slowly. The fear I expected never came. Their eyes became dull and heavy. One of them tilted his head, looking at the cracked bone in my brother's hand. Another stepped closer. I backed away. "Guys," I said, "what are you doing?" They looked at me. Samir frowned. "Why aren't you listening to your brother?" he asked. My mouth fell open. "What?" He is older than you, another friend said. That's not the point, I shouted. Look at what he's asking me to do. What is he asking? Samir said. It's just crushing some skulls. Just crushing some skulls. He said it like it was nothing. Like my brother had asked me to help clean up after a game. My brother smiled through his tears. He began taking the skulls off the belt and placing them on the ground one by one. No, I said, backing away. I'm not doing it. Someone stepped behind me. Before I could turn, a hand grabbed my throat. How will he not do it? The boy behind me muttered. His fingers tightened. I clawed at his hand. No, I gasped. Let go. The others moved toward me. They did not run. They did not shout. They walked slowly, calmly, with empty faces. That was worse than if they had attacked me in anger. It was like they had all agreed on something without speaking. Like something from the alley had passed into them through their eyes. They pushed me backward. I struggled, but there were too many of them. Someone grabbed my arms. Someone kicked my legs out from under me. I fell hard against the ground near the wall. Dust rose around my face. Stop, I begged. They closed in. Closer, closer, their shadows covered me. The sun was almost down now. The sky above the lane had turned dark orange, and the first cool breath of evening moved between the buildings. I remember seeing that sky between their heads. It looked so normal, so peaceful. Somewhere nearby, a woman was calling a child home for dinner. But no one came for me. My friends stood around me. Then, they moved aside. My brother stepped through the middle. He was holding a skull in both hands. His face was still wet with tears. I only asked you to crush one skull, he said. His voice broke like I had hurt him. I only asked you to listen. Please, I said. Please don't, he raised the skull. Then he smashed it down onto my head. Pain exploded through me. White light flashed in my eyes. My ears rang. For a moment, I did not know where I was. The world spun, and I felt warm liquid run down the side of my face. My brother leaned over me. Why don't you listen to me? He shouted. He hit me again. The skull cracked against my head. I screamed. Why? He cried. Another hit. Why? Another. The others watched. Then one of them laughed. It was a small laugh at first, nervous and strange. Then another boy picked up a skull from the ground. What's the problem? He said. He looked at the skull in his hands, then at me. It's easy, my brother stepped back. The boy hit me. After that, they all joined in. One by one, my friends picked up skulls and smashed them against me. They hit my head, my face, my chest, my shoulders. Some skulls broke on the first strike. Others took several hits. Bone dust filled the air. I tried to cover my face, but my arms stopped working. I tried to scream, but blood filled my mouth. The world became sound and pain. Crack, crack, crack. Their voices grew excited. Do this one. Hit harder. Look, it's breaking. The sun went down. The lane grew dark. At some point, I died. I know that sounds impossible. I know I should not be able to tell you what happened after that. But death did not make everything stop. Not right away. I was still there. I was outside myself and inside myself at the same time. I could see my body on the ground. My face was no longer a face. My hair was soaked dark. My clothes were torn and stained. My head had been split open so badly that I could not understand how it had ever held thoughts. But they did not stop. They kept hitting me until the skulls broke apart completely. They crushed the bones into pieces, then into smaller pieces, then into powder. By then, night had settled over the neighborhood. The lane was lit only by a weak yellow light from a window above. My friends were covered in dust. Bone powder clung to their hands, faces, hair, and clothes. It floated in the air like pale smoke. One of them rubbed it across his cheeks and smiled. Ah, he said. "What fun," another laughed and threw a handful into the air. The powder fell over them. They danced in it. They spun and shouted and laughed like they were drunk. They rubbed it on their faces. They stuck out their tongues and caught it. They breathed it in deeply, as if it smelled sweet. Their eyes shone in the dark. My brother stood among them. He was smiling now. The tears were gone. One boy stepped toward my body and looked down at my ruined head. "What about his skull?" he asked. "Should we crush this too?" My brother moved quickly. He put out his hand. "Don't touch it," he said. The others looked at him. His voice softened. "He is my brother," he said. "I'll do it myself later." That was the last kind thing he ever said about me. They waited until the lane was empty. Then they carried my body back to the alley. They dragged me by my arms and legs, laughing quietly when my feet bumped over the ground. My head hung loose. I could see everything, though my eyes were no longer looking. It took me deep into the narrow gap between the buildings. The alley welcomed them. That is the only way I can explain it. The darkness inside seemed thicker than before. The smell of rot was stronger. The trash shifted under their feet, but they did not sink. The walls leaned inward like they were watching. From somewhere above, a bag of garbage dropped from a window and burst open nearby, but no one looked up. They found a place near the middle of the alley. My brother knelt and dug with his hands. The others helped. Under the garbage, under the black dirt, under the layers of old waste, there were more bones. Many more. Fingers, teeth, pieces of ribs, small white fragments mixed with the soil like stones. They put me there. They covered me with trash and dirt. As they buried me, I heard my brother crying again. Not loud, not like before. Softly, almost lovingly. "Now you'll listen," he whispered. Then the alley went quiet. Time passed after that, but I do not know how much. Days, maybe years. Time in the alley is strange. The outside world still exists, but it feels far away. I hear children playing sometimes. I hear adults arguing. I hear rain. I hear trash falling from windows and landing above me in soft, heavy thuds. Sometimes I hear footsteps pause at the entrance. Kids still dare each other to go through. Most turn back. Some do not. When they step inside, the alley grows quiet around them. The outside sounds fade. Their feet sink into the trash. They find something white under the dirt. They pick it up. And then, the crying starts. I am still here. My skull is still somewhere beneath the filth, waiting for my brother to come back and finish what he promised. But sometimes, when children pass too close to the alley, I try to warn them. I push my voice up through the layers of garbage. I whisper through the cracks in the walls. I rattle the bones beneath their feet. Most of them do not hear me. But if you ever play near a narrow alley between two tall buildings, and someone tells you it is forbidden, believe them. Do not go in. Even if your friends cross first, even if your older brother tells you to follow. And if you hear something crunch under your foot, do not look down. Run, run before the alley decides you should listen too. Story 4. My wife and I had been together since we were teenagers. Sometimes, when I think about it now, it feels like we had lived a whole lifetime before we even understood what life really was. We were children pretending to be adults, holding hands in school hallways and making promises we were too young to understand. But back then, everything felt serious. Every look meant something. Every text felt important. Every little fight felt like the end of the world. I was a sophomore when I met her, and she was a senior. That age difference meant everything to me at the time. 2 years might not sound like much to an adult, but in high school it felt huge. She had a car. She had older friends. She knew how to talk to teachers without sounding nervous. She had already taken classes I was still scared of. She was beautiful in a way that made people turn their heads when she walked past. And somehow, she wanted me. I cannot explain what that did to me. I felt like I had won something, like I had stepped into a life I was not supposed to have yet. I was just some younger kid, awkward and unsure, but suddenly I was dating a senior. Not just any senior either. A smart, funny, genuinely beautiful girl who looked at me like I was worth something. I used that feeling to build myself up. Before her, I was shy. I watched people more than I spoke to them. I laughed at jokes even when I did not understand them, just so I would not seem strange. I cared too much about what everyone thought of me. But being with her made me feel different. Stronger, cooler, like maybe I was not as invisible as I had always believed. She taught me things. Not just little things, though there were plenty of those. She taught me how to dress better, how to speak with more confidence, how to stop apologizing before every sentence. She taught me how to drive in an empty parking lot behind the grocery store after closing time. I remember her laughing when I hit the brake too hard and nearly sent both of us forward. She put one hand on the dashboard and said, "Easy, the car isn't running away from you." I loved that about her. She always seemed calm when I was falling apart. We made it through the early stage of the relationship, the part where everything feels perfect and you think nothing could ever change. We made it through the jealousy from other people, the jokes from her friends, the warnings from adults who said high school relationships never last. By some miracle, we even made it through when she graduated and went away to college while I still had 2 more years left in high school. Those 2 years were hard. Harder than I ever admitted to anyone. She was in a new place, surrounded by new people, living a life I could not see. She had new classes, new friends, new routines. She went to parties. She stayed up late. She answered my texts slower than before. Sometimes she sounded tired when we talked on the phone. Sometimes I could hear people laughing in the background, and I would imagine all of them looking at her the way I looked at her. I learned something about myself during those 2 years. I learned that distance could ruin me. Separation anxiety sounds like such a weak phrase. People say it like it is something small, something children feel when their parents leave the room. But it was not small for me. It was heavy. It sat on my chest every day. It made my hands shake. It made my stomach hurt. It made me check my phone again and again until the screen felt burned into my eyes. If she did not reply, I wondered why. If she replied with fewer words than usual, I wondered what I had done wrong. If she said she was going out, I pictured every possible way she could leave me. The fear grew inside me quietly at first, then louder. It started whispering things I did not want to believe. She is happier without you. She is embarrassed by you. She will find someone older. She will find someone better. She will forget you. I hated those thoughts, but I could not stop them, and the more I loved her, the worse they became. Loving her felt like holding something precious over a deep hole. I was always afraid my hands would slip. Maybe that is why I asked her to marry me so quickly after we got our first apartment. We were young. Too young, some people said. But I did not care. I had waited through her college years. I had survived all those nights alone with my own thoughts. I had earned the right to stop being afraid. At least, that was how I saw it. I hate saying this because I know how it sounds, but she was mine, not like property, not exactly. I did not think of it that way back then. I thought of it as devotion, as destiny, as the kind of love that only comes once. She was the only woman I could imagine spending my life with. The only one who knew me before I became whatever I was trying to become. The only one who had seen the nervous kid inside me and loved him anyway. If I lost her, I would not just lose a wife. I would lose everything. So, I bought the ring. I planned the evening. I took her out to dinner and barely ate because my stomach was twisting itself into knots. Afterward, in our half-empty apartment with boxes still stacked against the wall, I got down on one knee. When she said yes, I thought I had finally won against all the fear. For a while, I felt safe. Marriage made everything feel solid, real, permanent. We had promised each other forever, and forever was supposed to mean something. I wore my ring like armor. I told myself she had chosen me in front of everyone, in front of our families, in front of God. She had said yes. She had become my wife. That meant she loved me. And she did love me. I know she did. She showed it in many ways. She made coffee for me in the morning when she woke up first. She remembered small things I liked. She ran her hand through my hair when I could not sleep. She left notes on the fridge sometimes, little jokes or reminders. She kissed my cheek when she passed behind me in the kitchen. She called me on her lunch break just to ask how my day was going. She gave me warmth. She gave me patience. She gave me more chances than most people would have. And still, something inside me kept whispering. She is lying. She does not love you. She is pretending. She secretly hates you. At night, I would lie awake while she slept peacefully beside me. I would hold her in my arms, feel the soft rhythm of her breathing, and wonder if she dreamed of leaving me. Her face looked so calm in sleep, and somehow that made me angry. How could she sleep so easily when I was drowning right beside her? The thoughts did not stay inside forever. They started coming out. At first, they were questions. Do you still love me? Are you happy? Are you sure you're not bored? Why did you smile at him like that? Why didn't you answer my text? Who were you talking to? I told myself I only needed reassurance. That was not so bad, was it? Everyone needs reassurance sometimes. Everyone wants to feel loved. If she really loved me, answering a few questions should not have bothered her. But it did. I could see it in her face. The way her smile faded when I asked again. The way her shoulders tightened when I checked her phone. The way she closed her eyes and breathed slowly when I wanted to know every detail of where she had been. Arguments started happening almost every day, sometimes over small things. A message from an old friend, a late shift at work, a plan with her friends, a dress I thought was too revealing, a tone in her voice, a look I did not understand. She would say, I'm tired. I would say, tired of me? She would say, that's not what I meant. I would say, then what did you mean? And we would go in circles until both of us were exhausted. Sometimes I wonder why she stayed so long. I used to think it was love. Maybe part of it was. Maybe she really believed I would get better. Maybe she thought I was still that younger boy she had taught to drive, the one who looked at her like she hung the moon. Maybe she thought if she loved me enough, trusted me enough, waited long enough, I would grow out of it. Maybe she thought I would learn to trust her. Or maybe she liked seeing me suffer. Maybe she enjoyed having that power over me. Maybe she secretly liked knowing I was so afraid of losing her that I would break myself open every day trying to keep her. People never want to admit that women can be cruel in quiet ways. They never want to admit that a soft voice can still lie. I do not know. I thought I knew her better than anyone. Then, I found the diary. It was in her vanity drawer. I was not snooping. Not at first. I know how that sounds, but I had only been looking for the nail clippers. She always moved them, and I needed them before work. Her vanity was a mess in the way only she could understand. Small bottles, brushes, makeup, hair ties, folded receipts, old jewelry, and things I did not have names for. The notebook was under a stack of face masks. Plain cover. No lock. No warning. I opened it because I thought it might be a planner. Maybe she had written down where the nail clippers were, or maybe there was a receipt tucked inside. That was what I told myself in that first second. Then I saw my name. Once I saw it, I could not stop. Any hope for growth, trust, maturity, healing, whatever word people like to use, died the moment I read those pages. I still do not understand how she could write those things about me. Words have weight. People pretend diaries do not count because they are private. But they do. A thought written down becomes real. It becomes proof. It becomes something you can hold in your hand and stare at until it burns into your eyes. She wrote about me like I was a stranger. No, worse than a stranger. She wrote about me like I was something dangerous. Paranoid, possessive, obsessive. Those words hurt. Of course they hurt. But I could have handled them. Maybe I could have convinced myself she was angry when she wrote them. Maybe it was a bad day. Maybe she needed to vent. But then I saw the word that broke something inside me. Terrifying, that was the word she used. Terrifying, me, the boy she taught to drive. The boy who fell in love with her and never stopped. The man who built his whole life around her. The husband who worried because he cared too much. The person who wanted nothing more than to keep our marriage safe. She was scared of me. I read that sentence again and again. I could not make it fit inside my head. I had given her freedom, more freedom than a lot of husbands would have allowed. She could stay out until 8 at night if she told me where she was. She could see her friends every month. I even let her have a girls' night at a bar last month, even though I hated the idea, even though I sat at home the whole time feeling like my skin was full of needles. I did that for her. I tried, and it still was not enough. She wrote that she wanted to leave. She wrote that she was scared to leave. I sat there at her vanity with the diary open in my hands, and the room seemed to tilt around me. The mirror reflected my face back at me, but I barely recognized it. My eyes looked dark. My mouth hung slightly open. I looked like someone who had just found a dead body. Maybe I had. Maybe I had found the dead body of my marriage, hidden in ink and paper. I tried to keep reading, but I could not get past page 30. There was too much. Too many little betrayals. Too many complaints. Too many twisted versions of things I remembered differently. She wrote about me asking where she was like it was control. She wrote about me wanting her home early like it was a prison. She wrote about me crying during arguments like it was manipulation. She wrote about me standing outside the bathroom door when she locked herself in and begging her to come out, like I was threatening her. She wrote about the night she slept in the guest room and pushed the dresser in front of the door. I remember that night. She said she needed space. I thought she might hurt herself. I thought she might pack a bag and leave while I slept. I thought she might call someone and tell them lies about me. I only wanted to talk. But in her diary, I was the monster. I closed the notebook. For a while, I just sat there. I took a deep breath and put my head in my hands. All my effort, all my patience, all my love. For nothing. I had spent years trying to hold us together while she had been writing about how much she wanted to escape. While I was lying beside her, worrying that she did not love me, she was proving me right in secret. Every fear I had ever spoken, every suspicion she called unfair, every question she said was exhausting, it had all been true in one way or another. She did resent me. She did want to leave. She did think I was terrifying. I do not know how long I sat there before I heard her voice behind me. Honey. It trembled. I turned slightly, but did not stand. She was in the doorway of the bedroom. Her purse was still on her shoulder, keys in one hand, phone in the other. She must have just come home. Her eyes moved from me to the vanity, then to the notebook in front of me. Her face changed. All the color drained from it. "Why are you sitting at my vanity?" she asked. Her voice was small, too small. For some reason, that made me laugh. Not because anything was funny. Nothing was funny. But the sound came out anyway. It started low, almost like a cough, then grew until I was laughing so hard my stomach hurt. I laughed at the years we had wasted. I laughed at the apartment, the wedding, the ring, the promises, the money, the dinners, the vacations, the mornings with coffee, the nights spent holding a woman who wanted to disappear from my life. I laughed at the idea that I had ever believed love was real. She stood frozen in the doorway. "Please," she whispered. "Just listen to me." I laughed harder. Because, of course, now she wanted me to listen. Now that I had read the truth, now that there was no place left for her to hide, she wanted to explain. She wanted to soften it. She wanted to turn her own words into something less ugly. But words are honest when no one is supposed to see them. That was what made the diary worse than a fight. In a fight, people say things they do not mean. They throw sharp words because they want to hurt each other. But a diary is different. A diary is where people put the truth when they think no one will ever look. And her truth was that she was afraid of me. She took one step into the room. I stopped laughing. "Don't," I said. She froze. Her eyes filled with tears. "I was going to tell you," she said. "Tell me what?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her hand tightened around her keys. "That you wanted to leave?" I asked. "That you were scared? That I'm paranoid? Possessive? Obsessive?" She flinched at every word. "Terrifying?" I said. A tear slipped down her cheek. "I didn't mean it like that," I smiled. How else could she mean it? Terrifying is not a complicated word. It does not hide behind layers. It means fear. It means danger. It means the person you promised to love has become the thing you want to survive. She looked at the door behind her, just for half a second. But I saw it. I always saw things like that. "You want to leave," I said softly. She shook her head too fast. "No. You wrote it. I was upset. You wrote it more than once." She started crying harder then. I didn't know what else to do. That made me angry. Not loud anger. Not the kind that explodes all at once. This was colder. Quieter. It moved through me slowly and settled somewhere deep. She did not know what else to do? After everything I had given her? After all the chances I had taken? All the rules I had bent? All the trust I had tried to build, even when it tore me apart? She wanted to leave. Fine, love is fleeting. People say forever because it sounds beautiful, but they rarely mean it. They mean until it becomes uncomfortable, until it becomes difficult, until someone else smiles at them, until they decide they deserve more. But marriage is not just a feeling. Marriage is a promise. We stood in front of people and said the words. We made vows, we wore rings, we told each other it was forever. Not until she became unhappy. Not until she got scared. Not until she wrote enough pages in her diary to make herself brave. Till death do us part. That was the promise. She took another step back. I stood up. "Please," she said again. I picked up the diary and held it in my hand. She looked at it like it was a weapon. Maybe it was. "You made me think I was crazy," I said. "I never wanted that. You made me feel like I was wrong for being afraid." "I was afraid too," she whispered. I stared at her. There it was again. Afraid. Always afraid. I walked toward her slowly. She did not move at first. Then her body seemed to remember itself, and she stepped back into the hallway. "You don't have to do this," she said. I almost smiled at that. People say strange things when they already know the ending. Do what? What did she think I was going to do? Maybe she knew me better than I thought. Maybe that was the worst part. She turned and ran. For 1 second, I watched her go. Her feet slipped slightly on the hallway rug. Her purse hit the wall. Her keys jingled in her hand. She reached for the front door, and in that second, I remembered us as teenagers. I remembered her sitting in the passenger seat, laughing as I tried to park between two crooked lines. I remembered her hand over mine on the steering wheel. I remembered the sun in her hair and the way she said, "Easy, the car isn't running away from you." But she was running now. From me. From us. From the promise. I followed her into the hallway. She fumbled with the lock, crying so hard she could barely breathe. I could hear her whispering something. Maybe my name. Maybe a prayer. Maybe an apology that came too late. I do not remember deciding anything. I only remember the feeling that the world had narrowed down to one simple truth. She wanted to leave. So be it. But promises matter. Love can rot. Trust can die. People can lie, smile, sleep beside you, and write secret truths in hidden notebooks. But vows are vows. And ours had always been clear. Till death did us part. Story 5. I used to believe the worst moment of my life was the day my wife opened her eyes in the hospital and looked at me like I was a stranger. For months, I carried that moment around inside me. I replayed it every morning when I woke up and every night before I fell asleep. I thought nothing could ever hurt more than standing beside the woman I loved, holding her hand, and realizing she had no idea who I was. But I was wrong. That was not the worst moment. The worst moment of my life happened today, and I still do not know what I am supposed to do with it. I do not know how to explain it, how to accept it, or how to survive knowing what I now know. 3 months ago, my wife Cynthia and I went hiking on a trail about 30 miles outside Albion. We had hiked there before, but only once, and Cynthia had loved it. She loved places that made her feel small in a good way. Tall trees, wide sky, long trails, places where she could walk until the noise of normal life faded away. That morning had been clear and cool, the kind of day that makes people believe nothing bad can happen. Cynthia had packed sandwiches, trail mix, and 2 bottles of water. She had worn her blue hiking jacket, the one I always teased her about because she insisted it brought out her eyes. She was right, of course. Cynthia's eyes were a deep sapphire blue, bright enough that strangers noticed them, but I still teased her because making her roll her eyes was one of my favorite things. We had been married for 6 years. Not perfect years. No marriage is perfect. We argued about bills, family visits, how much space Zelda took up on the bed, and whether the thermostat should be set to a reasonable temperature or Cynthia's version of reasonable, which was anything that made me sweat. But we were happy. We had a life made of small routines that felt ordinary at the time and sacred now. Coffee in the morning. Zelda scratching at our bedroom door before sunrise. Cynthia humming in the shower. Her hand finding mine in grocery store aisles. The way she said my name when she was half asleep. I did not know those small things could disappear so quickly. The accident happened near the ridge overlook. We were about 2 hours into the hike. The trail narrowed there, running along a slope where the ground dropped sharply on one side. There was a view through the trees, and Cynthia stepped closer to see it. I remember telling her to be careful. I remember her turning back toward me with a smile, ready to say something. Then the ground shifted under her boot. It happened so fast that my mind still refuses to hold it correctly. 1 second, she was standing there. The next, she slipped. Her arms reached out. She grabbed at a branch, missed, and fell over the edge. I shouted her name so loudly my throat hurt. She fell nearly 20 feet and landed on a jagged outcropping below. The sound she made when she hit the rocks was the kind of sound a person never forgets. It was not loud, but it cut through everything. Birds scattered from the trees. The whole forest seemed to go silent afterward. I threw myself down at the edge and looked over. Cynthia was lying twisted on the rocks below. Blood was already spreading from the side of her head. Her body did not move. I tried to climb down, but the slope was too steep and loose. Every step sent dirt and stones sliding away beneath me. If I fell, I would end up beside her, and then neither of us would be able to get help. I screamed her name again and again, but she did not answer. My phone had no service. So I did the only thing I could do. I ran. I scrambled back along the trail, downhill, slipping and cutting my hands on branches as I searched for a signal. It felt like the forest had grown longer around me. Every turn looked the same. Every second felt stolen from her. When my phone finally showed one weak bar, I called 911 and could barely make my voice work. By the time paramedics reached her, Cynthia was unconscious and bleeding badly from the side of her head. I rode with them to the hospital. I remember the siren. I remember the paramedic telling me to keep breathing. I remember Cynthia's face, pale and still, with dried blood in her hair. I remember thinking that if she died, a part of me would die with her. At the hospital, they took her away from me. I waited in the lobby for what felt like forever. Time stopped behaving normally. Seconds crawled. Minutes dragged themselves forward like wounded animals. I sat with my hands clasped so tightly that my fingers went numb. I prayed, even though I had not prayed seriously in years. I promised things to God I knew I could not keep. I promised to be better, kinder, more patient. I promised I would never complain about anything again if she just lived. When the doctor finally came out, I stood so fast the room spun around me. He told me Cynthia was alive. The words should have made me collapse with relief. In some ways, they did. But then he kept talking. He explained that she had suffered a serious head injury. There was swelling. There had been blood loss. She would need time. They were monitoring her closely. Then he said something I have not been able to forget. Her guardian angel was looking out for her. Those were his exact words. He said it like a comforting phrase, something doctors say when they do not want to admit how close someone came to dying. He told me her injuries could have been far worse. He told me to remain cautiously optimistic. I tried to hold on to that. For days, Cynthia drifted in and out of consciousness. Sometimes she opened her eyes, but did not seem to see anything. Sometimes her fingers moved when I touched them. Sometimes her lips parted like she wanted to speak, but no words came out. I sat beside her bed every day. I talked to her even when she could not answer. I told her about Zelda. I told her about the hospital coffee being terrible. I told her that I had watered the plants, even though I had forgotten once, and the basil was probably beyond saving. I told her I loved her. I told her she was going to come home. Then one afternoon, she finally looked at me. Really looked at me. Her eyes focused on my face. For one beautiful second, I thought she knew me. Then she frowned. "Do I know you?" she asked. I did not answer. I could not. The question did not feel like something Cynthia had said. It felt like something thrown at me from another life. I stood there, with her hand in mine, feeling the hospital room tilt around me, while the woman I loved waited for me to explain who I was. The neurologists used the words retrograde amnesia. They explained that memory loss after head trauma could be complicated. They told me some memories might return, while others might not. They warned me about emotional instability, confusion, personality changes, and shifts in taste or behavior. I heard the words, but I did not absorb them properly. My body was in the room, nodding along, asking questions when I was supposed to. But my mind was still trapped inside that first question. Do I know you? They warned me that the woman who came home might not be exactly the woman I remembered. That warning broke me more than I want to admit. In the days that followed, people came to visit. Her parents, my sister, friends from work, neighbors. Everyone brought flowers, cards, food, and careful smiles. They told Cynthia stories about herself. They showed her photos. They tried to help her laugh. Everyone wanted to lift her spirits. I became obsessed with research. Every night, I sat at my laptop, reading about head injuries and memory recovery. I called specialists. I watched interviews with people who had lived through similar cases. I read medical articles until the words blurred. I made notes. I printed pages. I asked the doctors too many questions. I was desperate to find something that could bring Cynthia back to herself. By the time she was cleared to come home, I had turned our house into a place built around her recovery. I labeled drawers. I placed photos around the living room. I made a small memory board with pictures from our wedding, vacations, birthdays, and holidays. I set up reminders on her phone. I put emergency numbers on the fridge. I bought the soft blankets she liked and made sure the bedroom was warm. When I drove her home, I kept glancing at her from the corner of my eye. She stared out the window almost the entire time. I wondered if any of the streets looked familiar. I wondered if the town seemed like a place she had lived for years, or just another strange place she had been taken to by a man she was told she had married. Do you recognize any of this? I asked softly. She looked at the passing houses. A little, she said. That was enough to make me hope. At home, the adjustment was slow. Cynthia remembered my name after a while, but names are small things compared to love. She knew I was Jason. She knew I was her husband because everyone told her so, but knowing a fact is not the same as feeling it. She started sleeping on the far side of the bed, turned away from me. Before the accident, she had always slept close, sometimes half on top of me, stealing blankets and pressing her cold feet against my legs. Now she kept distance between us. I understood. To her, I must have felt like a stranger wearing the title of husband. Still, understanding it did not make it hurt less. Then there was the coffee. Before the accident, Cynthia loved coffee. She refused to start any morning without it. She liked it with a splash of oat milk and 1 teaspoon of brown sugar. No more, no less. I knew exactly how to make it. It was one of the first things I did for her when she came home. I brought her a cup one morning and waited, hoping the smell might stir something in her. She took 1 sip and made a face. That's disgusting, she said. I tried to laugh it off, but it crushed me. Not because of the coffee itself, but because it was another tiny piece of her that had vanished. I poured the pot down the sink and never made another cup after that. Other things changed, too. She forgot our address. She asked where we kept things she had bought herself. She called our dog Sammy several times, even though our dog's name was Zelda. Zelda had been with us for 7 years. She was a medium-sized mutt with soft brown fur, white paws, and the gentle patience of an old soul. Cynthia adored her. Zelda adored Cynthia even more. Before the accident, Zelda followed her from room to room, slept on her side of the bed, and waited by the door whenever Cynthia left the house. But when Cynthia came home from the hospital, Zelda changed. At first, she stayed away from her. I thought maybe she was confused by the hospital smell or Cynthia's slower movements. Dogs can sense when something is wrong. Maybe Zelda was nervous because Cynthia seemed nervous. Then one afternoon, Cynthia screamed. I ran into the living room and found her holding her hand, eyes wide with shock. Zelda stood a few feet away, body stiff, teeth showing. What happened? I asked. She bit me, Cynthia said. The bite was not deep enough to draw much blood, but it left marks. Cynthia was furious. She said all she had done was try to pet her. She kept saying Zelda was dangerous and needed to go. I stared at our dog. Zelda had never bitten anyone. Not a child, not a stranger, not even a vet who once had to pull a thorn from her paw. The entire time Cynthia and I argued about it, Zelda stood in the doorway to the next room, growling low in her throat. I called her name. Zelda, stop. She did not look at me. Her eyes stayed fixed on Cynthia. I told myself Zelda was adjusting. I told myself everything in the house was different now. Cynthia smelled like medicine. She moved differently. Maybe Zelda did not understand. Anything else meant thinking something I could not afford to think. That night, I woke up around 2 in the morning and realized Cynthia was not in bed. The space beside me was empty. I went downstairs and found every light in the kitchen on. Cynthia sat at the table, surrounded by photo albums. Pictures were spread everywhere. Our wedding, Christmas with her parents, a trip to Florida, a weekend at the lake, birthdays, random selfies. Zelda as a puppy. She looked like a college student trying to memorize years of life before an exam. What are you doing? I asked, shielding my eyes from the bright lights. It's 2 in the morning. You scared me. She looked up quickly and shut one of the albums. Sorry, she said. I couldn't help myself. I'm just trying to remember everything. I walked over and put my arms around her shoulders from behind. Don't apologize, I said. I'll help you remember. I'm here for every step. She placed one hand over mine, but her eyes stayed on the photos. We sat there for a while. I told her stories about the pictures, how nervous I had been on our wedding day, how she had cried during fireworks at Disney World because she said they made her feel like a kid again, how Zelda had eaten half a pumpkin pie one Thanksgiving and then looked deeply ashamed for about 5 minutes before trying to steal turkey. Cynthia smiled at the right moments. Sometimes she even laughed. I wanted those laughs to be real. Over the next few weeks, things improved. At least, I thought they did. Cynthia began remembering small details. Birthdays, our anniversary, favorite foods, the names of cousins and coworkers. She remembered the layout of the grocery store. She remembered a restaurant we liked. She even corrected me about a detail from our Disney World trip that I had gotten wrong. You always say we went to Magic Kingdom first, she said one evening. But we didn't. We went to Epcot because you wanted that awful beer flight. I laughed so hard I almost cried. That night we watched a movie in bed. Halfway through, Cynthia shifted closer and rested her head against my chest. My whole body went still. She had not done that since before the accident. I think I'm starting to remember a certain feeling, she said. I looked down at her. What do you mean, dear? She smiled up at me with those sapphire eyes. What it feels like to be in your arms. I cannot explain what those words did to me. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe without pain. I wrapped my arms around her, and she let me. I held her carefully, afraid that if I moved too quickly, the moment would break. After that, hope came back into the house. Not all at once, but enough. I started believing we might rebuild something. Maybe it would not be the exact same marriage. Maybe memory would return in pieces, or maybe we would have to make new memories over the old missing ones. But she was here. She was trying. She was smiling at me again. I should have trusted Zelda. Today, I came home from work and found Cynthia sitting on the couch watching TV. That alone was normal. She had been watching old sitcoms lately because she said they made her feel calm. The living room was warm. The afternoon light came through the curtains. Zelda was not on the couch with her. She was in the hallway, sitting perfectly still, staring into the living room. At first, I did not notice what Cynthia was eating. Then I saw the takeout container in her hand, leftover Thai food from the night before. My stomach tightened before my mind understood why. She was scooping noodles into her mouth with a fork. The sauce was thick and creamy. I knew exactly what it was because I had ordered it for myself. I stepped closer and read the black marker writing on the side of the container. Spicy PB noodles. PB, peanut butter. The room went quiet around me. Cynthia had a severe peanut allergy. Not mild, not something that made her throat itch or gave her a rash. Severe, life-threatening. Any real exposure could send her into anaphylactic shock and kill her within minutes. We kept EpiPens in the kitchen, the car, her purse, and my work bag. We checked labels on everything. We avoided restaurants that were careless about cross-contamination. I had spent years protecting her from peanuts because one mistake could mean death. And now she was eating peanut sauce by the forkful. Calmly, comfortably, like it was nothing. Cynthia noticed me staring. "Why are you looking at me like that?" she asked. "Is everything okay, honey?" Honey, she said it so naturally. That somehow made it worse. "You can't eat that," I said. My voice sounded far away. She looked down at the container, then back at me. "What? You can't eat that?" She set the container slowly on the coffee table. "Jason? Baby, what are you talking about? Of course I can." My hands began to shake. Rage hit me first, but sadness came with it, deep and cold. I thought of the woman I had married, the woman who checked menus twice, the woman who once cried in an emergency room after accidentally eating a dessert that had peanut flour in it, the woman who had gripped my hand while struggling to breathe. That woman could not eat what Cynthia had just eaten. She stood and started walking toward me. "Jason," she said gently, "you're scaring me." I backed away. Her face changed. Hurt appeared there, or something that looked like hurt. "Please don't look at me like that," she said. But I could not stop, because suddenly all the little wrong things lined up in my mind. The coffee, the side of the bed, the address, Sammy, Zelda growling. The photo albums at 2 a.m, like she had been studying a life she did not know. The memories coming back too neatly. The Disney World correction. The words in bed. What it feels like to be in your arms. Had she remembered that feeling, or had she learned the right thing to say? I turned and went upstairs. She called after me, but I did not stop. I locked myself in the bedroom. She has not come up since. I think she is still downstairs. The TV is still on. Every now and then I hear faint laughter from the sitcom, followed by silence. I do not hear Cynthia moving around. I do not hear dishes. I do not hear her crying. I do not hear Zelda either. That scares me almost as much as the peanuts. I keep thinking about the doctor's words. Her guardian angel was looking out for her. What if he was wrong? What if something was looking out for something else? What if Cynthia did not survive that fall? What if something found her down there on the rocks before the paramedics did? Something that saw an emptying body and a life it could step into. Something that needed time to learn how to be her. Something that used the head injury as an excuse for every mistake. I know how that sounds. I know grief can twist people. I know trauma can make the mind search for monsters, because monsters are easier to face than random tragedy. Maybe tomorrow I will feel ashamed for thinking this, Maybe I will call her doctor. Maybe there is some medical explanation for all of it. But peanut allergies do not vanish because of amnesia. A person can forget their address. They can forget names. They can forget a favorite drink. They can wake up changed. But they do not forget the way their body reacts to poison. I just heard Zelda growl downstairs. Low, long, then Cynthia laughed. Not loudly, not cruelly, just a small laugh, the kind someone makes when a dog does something cute. Zelda growled again. Now there is silence. I am sitting on the floor against the bedroom door with my phone in my hand. I do not know whether to call 911, a doctor, or a priest. I do not know whether to run out the window or stay here until morning. I do not know if the thing downstairs knows that I know. But I do know one thing. The woman sitting in my living room, eating peanut noodles and wearing my wife's face, is not Cynthia. And I do not think she ever came home from that hospital.